There, where he struck the river. He bleeds.
Released in 1956, The Ten Commandments erupted like an earthquake in the history of Hollywood, immersing audiences in one of the most grand and fierce masterpieces of all time. The story opens in ancient Egypt, when Moses, the adopted prince of Pharaoh's court, suddenly discovers a shocking truth. He bears the Jewish blood of the wretched slaves. From a man of power in a luxurious palace, he is forced to face a life or death choice: continue living in glory or embark on the mission of liberating his people. That journey quickly becomes a fiery epic, depicted with miracles that shake heaven and earth: the Nile turning to blood, the 10 plagues descending upon Egypt, and the Red Sea splitting in a magnificent spectacle never seen before. The Ten Commandments is not only a religious film, but also an epic that engraves the longing for freedom, absolute faith, and the power of human will in the face of adversity. With colossal production scale, overwhelming set pieces, and Charlton Heston's immortal transformation as Moses, the masterpiece directed by Cecil B. DeMille has become an indestructible monument of world cinema. Yet behind that dazzling radiance are a series of shocking secrets, from fiery backstage disputes, accidents that nearly claimed the lives of the crew, to never-before-revealed stories about how this cinematic wonder was created. Join me in lifting the velvet curtain to discover the most shocking and thrilling truths about the Ten Commandments, the film that turned Moses' journey into a legend that lives forever on the silver screen. 1. The Angel of Death scene sends chills because of a terrifying secret hidden in the mist. Do you get goosebumps when you see the green mist creeping slowly across the Egyptian floor in the Ten Commandments like I do? In that moment, the audience falls into a feeling of death seeping in, a vague horror that no one can explain. Because hidden behind that haze, DeMille and the technical team embedded a detail so creepy it's hard to believe: the image of a real human skull. No one in the theatre could point and say, "I see it," but human eyes unconsciously registered that chilling outline. The result is fear spreading not from an overly explicit image, but from a subconscious haunting. Viewers shudder, their chests heavy as they hear wailing echo, because they are looking at death constructed from reality, not just cinematic effects. It is no longer just a shot, but an experience that touches the deepest instinct, where humans confront death directly. And if a ghastly silhouette can plant such an obsession, imagine the terror when the entire set had to face the director nearly losing his life, too. The director nearly lost his life after falling from a tens of meters high ladder right on set. The set of the Ten Commandments in 1955 was a gigantic world in the desert, where thousands of extras jostled in vibrant costumes, with scorching lights beaming directly onto burning sand. High above, Cecil B. DeMille, the king of epics in Hollywood, stood steady on a steel ladder over 40 meters tall, megaphone in hand, eyes observing every detail. At 73, he should have retired, yet he embraced the ambition to create the greatest work of his life. But in that moment of authority, his heart suddenly betrayed him. A violent chest pain brought DeMille to his knees, nearly falling off the ladder to the horror of the entire crew. He was rushed to the hospital, where the doctor sternly declared, "If you continue, you will die." But DeMille only scoffed, saying he would rather collapse on set than live in incompletion. And true to his words, just 2 days later, the aged director returned, voice booming through the speaker, commanding the cinematic army like a general who refuses defeat. Death's shadow swept by, but could not stop the frenzy called the Ten Commandments. That recklessness was ultimately rewarded, as the film became an immortal monument beloved by millions of viewers. But if this story made the entire crew shudder, one creature made things even more serious. 3. A venomous snake escaped and turned the set into a chaotic hell. In the Ten Commandments, snakes appear in many scenes as a symbol of death and power. The set, therefore, was not short of these fearsome creatures. But for DeMille, artificial effects were never enough. He wanted the audience to see real venom. He wanted every frame to exude the peril of the Bible. And so, the crew decided to bring a live king cobra into the scene where Moses' staff turns into a serpent. At first, it slithered slowly on the sand, scorching lights shining on its glossy scales, creating a terrifying, breath-tightening frame. Hundreds of eyes fixated on that deadly creature, waiting for an immortal cinematic moment. But disaster struck unexpectedly. The cobra broke free of control. It shot toward the camera, gliding over electrical cables and blazing lights. In a flash, the set turned into hell. Screams rang everywhere. Extras threw down props. Technicians jostled to find an escape route. Some stumbled. Others were nearly dragged into tangles of cables. Sweat, dust, and fear blended into unprecedented chaos. It took nearly an hour before they recaptured the snake and restored a fragile calm. From that moment, no one dared challenge Venom again. But when the danger had passed, another secret emerged. From something seemingly harmless, the popcorn kernels. 4. The terrifying hailstorm actually came from a familiar snack. Audiences in 1956 were stunned in theatres when the plague of hail descended upon Egypt. A sky black as pitch, thunder ripping the air, and white masses falling to blanket Pharaoh's palace. Everyone believed they were witnessing wrath from on high, an unprecedented cinematic miracle. But the truth behind that spectacle makes many laugh. All those hailstones were just popcorn painted white. Under pressure to create a grand catastrophe that was still safe for actors, the technical team came up with using popcorn. The feather-like kernels fell without causing pain and could be thrown onto actors repeatedly without worry of injury. More importantly, after each take, the crew simply swept them up, gathered them, and reused them for the next shot. Combined with blazing Technicolor lighting and spliced thunder effects, harmless popcorn became the weapon of the gods. And if popcorn could make the whole world believe in miracles, wait until you see what material constructed the wonder of the Red Sea. 5. The Red Sea wonder was actually created with a sticky, gelatinous ingredient. At the moment Moses raises his staff and the sea parts into two colossal walls of water, millions of viewers gasp, eyes glued to the screen. This is the scene that entered history, praised as the pinnacle of cinematic wonder. But in reality, there were no computers, no CGI, only bold imagination and a sticky ingredient. The technical team set up two massive tanks, poured water thickened with gelatin to make it viscous, then let that stream of liquid cascade down like a torrent. When the footage was played in reverse, the audience saw the sea part, water stopping into towering wave walls, dust rising as if wind were blowing through. 6 months of preparation, dozens of tests, all to create a scene of less than 10 minutes. Yet that very spectacle defined what a cinematic wonder is. And while audiences were still trembling before that grandeur, a cold-blooded decision backstage snatched away Audrey Hepburn's opportunity. 6. The ingenue. Audrey Hepburn was eliminated for a single bodily detail. Do you admire and love Audrey Hepburn, the epitome of Hollywood elegance, like millions around the world? Yet behind that radiance, Hepburn once tasted a bitter rejection. When DeMille was searching for a face for Princess Nefertiti, her name was under consideration. Hepburn stepped into the audition with limpid eyes, a gentle smile, and a presence that silenced the room. But in DeMille's secret notebook, a cold note still appeared. Charming, but not enough physique. That not enough was the verdict on her slender frame and too small bust, unable to fill the costumes laden with beads and pearls. The kind the director wanted for a queen of seduction and power. The role ultimately went to Anne Baxter, whose physique was enough to embody Egyptian desire and authority. Hepburn left quietly, while in California, a young metal band unexpectedly found inspiration to write an immortal song. 7. A casual movie screening gave birth to Metallica's legendary track. In 1983, in a small house in California, 3 young men of Metallica huddled around a TV playing a VHS of the 10 Commandments. The blue glow from the screen fell on their faces as it reached the Angel of Death sequence, the eerie mist creeping slowly, entering every Egyptian home, taking the firstborn's life. Cliff Burton, the bassist, suddenly blurted, "It's like creeping death." That remark exploded like lightning in the room. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich immediately realised it was the seed of a new song. And from that spontaneous moment, Creeping Death was born, a track that retells the plagues of the Bible in the fierce voice of thrash metal. On stage, tens of thousands of fans roar, "Die, die," with the chorus, as if witnessing Egypt's calamity descend. A film released in 1956 accidentally sowed the seed for a legendary 1984 song. Music stirred the hearts of the young, while outside, thousands of stone tablets of the 10 Commandments were erected across America. 8. Over 4,000 stone monuments across the US unexpectedly became a landmark lawsuit. No one in the 1950s could have guessed that a film marketing campaign would leave a legal mark lasting half a century. Paramount and DeMille spent money to erect over 4,000 The 10 Commandments. Stone monuments across America, in parks, squares, and right in front of courthouses and government offices. For DeMille, this was not just publicity, but a declaration. The 10 Commandments are the moral foundation of freedom. However, those seemingly immovable stones became the spark of intense controversy. Constitutional groups argued they violated the principle of separation of church and state. In 2005, one such monument in Texas was brought before the US Supreme Court, becoming a nationwide sensation. The result? The tablet was allowed to remain on grounds of cultural value, not purely religious. A film campaign had inadvertently etched its name into American legal history. Back in Hollywood, the beauty of an Egyptian princess ignited an endless debate. 9. The face of the Egyptian princess ignited a heated debate across Hollywood. When Anne Baxter appeared on screen as Princess Nefertiti, the entire auditorium fell silent. Eyes lined sharply into elongated wings, lips blazing red like fire. Every feature so sensual that people forgot they were watching a biblical film. For DeMille, it was the perfect choice, a symbol of seduction, both mesmerizing and dangerous. But for many conservative religious groups, it was an affront. They argued her languid gaze and bewitching smile turned the character into an overly carnal image, shattering the sacred nature of the Exodus story. The debate spread throughout Hollywood. Some praised Nefertiti as a new symbol of allure, others fumed and called for a boycott. And that very divide inadvertently made the film even more famous. While a princess's face inflamed public opinion, another Egyptian plague was erased right from the editing stage behind the scenes. 10. One biblical plague was filmed and then vanished forever. To recreate the 10 plagues upon Egypt, DeMille left out no detail. He even constructed a grand set piece for the plague of frogs. Hundreds of live frogs released into the palace, crawling over the throne, leaping wildly across the stone floor, creating an atmosphere of chaos exactly as described in the Bible. That scene consumed weeks of preparation. The crew endured a fishy stench and sticky, haunting visuals. But when tests screened, audiences burst out laughing. They felt no fear, only amusement as the frogs unintentionally struck ridiculous poses. DeMille was stunned. A sacred plague turned into a joke. There was no other choice. He had to cut it entirely, leaving the scene to vanish forever from the official film. The 9th plague in the Bible became the 11th plague for the filmmakers themselves. Audiences would never see frogs on screen, but they unexpectedly witnessed another strange detail: Moses' costume. 11. Moses' robe accidentally matched ancient sources with precision. Charlton Heston donned a robe of red, black and white stripes, a simple choice DeMille felt played well with Technicolor cameras. Yet years later, religious scholars and archaeologists were astonished to realize that was exactly the ritual color scheme of the Levite priests, the tribe from which the historical Moses truly descended in the Bible. No one in the crew knew of this strange coincidence. For audiences, Moses stepped from the screen not only as a prophet, but as a vivid historical embodiment. The robe unintentionally made Heston into an authentic Moses to such an extent that the line between cinema and myth blurred. People wondered whether it was mere chance or an invisible hand guiding it. But while Moses wore a sacred robe, the real-life pharaoh had to struggle to keep his authoritative image in front of the camera. 12. The legendary pharaoh secretly hit the weights to keep his throne on screen. It sounds hard to believe, but behind the radiance of Pharaoh Rameses, Yul Brynner carried a quiet worry. A modest stature, only 1.73 meters tall. He had to face Charlton Heston near 1.91 steals, muscular like a warrior. Brynner understood that if he allowed himself to be overshadowed, the image of a mighty pharaoh would crumble at first glance. So he plunged into furious training. Day after day, Brynner could be seen in the gym, lifting heavy weights, doing pull-ups, honing every muscle as if preparing for battle. Soon, a toned physique and firm shoulders made him an authority equal to his rival. On screen, Rameses was no longer a faint shadow, but a true pharaoh, both handsome and fierce. That quiet effort turned a role into a legend. By now, props seemed to sleep in storage, but years later they were reborn amid the futuristic space of the cosmos. 13. Ancient Egyptian props unexpectedly appeared in the cosmic future of Star Trek. Hundreds of silver goblets, intricately carved wine vessels, and splendid golden censers that had adorned Pharaoh's palace did not disappear after shooting wrapped. They were stored in Paramount's prop warehouse, lying dormant for decades. But fate drew them a strange journey. Those ancient Egyptian items reappeared in Star Trek: The Next Generation, 1993. On television screens, viewers saw 24th century astronauts drinking from the very cups once used in the on-screen ancient Egypt. A bizarre extension of cinematic history, from the Bible to Pharaoh, then straight into outer space. No one expected that a few worn props could become an invisible thread connecting two legends. And while objects were reborn in the future, the miracles on screen were crafted by entirely different hands. 14. Disney artists quietly stood behind the divine miracles. Few know that behind the sacred scenes of the Ten Commandments, from the pillar of fire tearing the sky to God's finger engraving the tablets, was the touch of Disney. Paramount secretly invited top animators from the world's most famous animation studio. They brought experience from Fantasia and other magical projects, combining real light with painstaking optical compositing. The result was imagery beyond the imagination of the 1950s. Viewers saw flames blazing without burning, characters gradually glowing into stone tablets, as if the invisible hand of the Almighty were present. It was not just cinema, it was true magic. While sacred miracles appeared on screen, a wry mishap unexpectedly erupted on set, bringing bursts of laughter across the crew. 15. You Stinking Bald Old Man, and the comeback that made the whole set roar. During the Golden Calf Festival scene, hundreds of extras, exhausted, danced under scorching lights, sweat soaking their glittering costumes. Amid the chaos, a female extra sighed. "When will that stinking bald old man let us break for lunch?" She thought her words would drown in the noise, but they blasted straight through the microphone system. The set fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to Cecil B. DeMille, the strict director famed for thunderous rages. The tension was so thick, that everyone held their breath, bracing for a storm. But DeMille, with his gleaming, bald head, paused for a few seconds. Then suddenly he shouted, "Lunch!" Laughter exploded, rippling across the set. In a rare moment, the crew realized that even a stern master could turn himself into the Joker. And as the laughter faded, another scene brought far deeper emotion. 16. The baby Moses drifting on the Nile was actually Charlton Heston's real blood. Have you ever shuddered at the iconic scene of baby Moses lying in a basket drifting on the Nile? That innocent face under the Egyptian sun was Fraser Clark Heston, Charlton Heston's 3-month-old son. It was not merely a role, but a strange harmony between screen and bloodline. As the camera panned slowly, audiences saw a child trembling, fragile amid the waves. But for Heston, it was his own flesh and blood embodying a legendary figure. He lifted his son after each take, eyes brimming with pride and emotion. That moment became one of the film's most humane touchpoints, where myth and reality merged into one. And before the emotion faded, the crew had to plunge into a sequence that dragged on to exhaustion. 17. A 3-week shoot left the entire crew exhausted and swearing. The Golden Calf Festival was staged by DeMille as a frenzied bacchanal, wine flowing, pounding music, hundreds of extras dancing and screaming for hours on end. But to recreate such madness, the crew had to shoot for 3 continuous weeks under scorching heat and blazing lights. Strength drained away, sweat mixed with dust, gaudy costumes became burdens. Fatigue built up until many actors could not bear it, letting fly a jibe. "Who do you have to sleep with to get out of this movie?" Awkward laughter echoed in bitterness, reflecting the depletion the entire crew endured. On screen, audiences saw a choreographed frenzy. In real life, that very frenzy ate away at human strength. People had barely recovered when a supernatural phenomenon suddenly planted an indescribable chill. 18. A mysterious white figure appeared and vanished right in the Egyptian desert. The sun beat down on the set like fire. Hundreds of extras jostled in heavy costumes. Amid that sea of people, some crew members suddenly insisted they saw a white-clad figure standing silently in the sand. The shape remained motionless for a while, then dissolved before their eyes as if it had never existed. Rumors spread quickly. Some swore it was a ghost. Others believed it was a watcher in the sand sent to witness the film. Though only hearsay, the event planted a vague chill in everyone's hearts, as if an invisible hand were watching every take. The white figure remains a mystery, while another truth rang out with authority from Charlton Heston's own lips. 19. The voice from the burning bush actually came from Moses on screen. In the scene where Moses kneels before the burning bush, the audience hears the voice of God, resonant, deep, sacred. Everyone believed it was an anonymous actor chosen to embody the Lord's voice. But the astonishing truth, it was Charlton Heston himself. To create the effect, technicians lowered his pitch and added resonance, making Moses both hear and seem to speak with his own soul. This bold decision pushed the scene beyond conventional limits, turning it into a spiritual experience that haunted audiences. The boundary between human and divine blurred as Moses and God spoke with one body. While myth manifested on screen, an unknown figure quietly began a journey to become a music legend. 20. A music legend began his career with an anonymous drumming role. During the Golden Calf Festival, amid the frenzied crowd, a 21-year-old youth sat at the corner of the stage, drumming to the rhythm. The camera only briefly brushed across his back. Not a single credit recorded his name. Yet that young man was Herb Alpert, who later became a legend with the Tijuana Brass. From an anonymous extra, Alpert stepped into the music world, blew the trumpet, and garnered dozens of awards, creating a new, glorious chapter of American culture. Few know it all began with a faint moment on the Ten Commandments set. A film that not only created a cinematic wonder, but also sowed seeds for legends in entirely different fields. The Ten Commandments, 1956, is a cinematic masterpiece that has transcended time, becoming an immortal symbol of Hollywood's epic genre. The film not only recreates one of the most sacred stories of the Bible, but also unveils unprecedented grand scenes. Every frame brings awe, both majestic and deeply humane. More than half a century has passed, yet the work still makes global audiences marvel, admire, and revere. If you find these behind-the-scenes truths interesting, please give the video a like and share so more people can explore together. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next shocking film stories.